It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. It's Friday. Hallelujah. Oh my gosh. Indiana, Notre Dame tonight, Colts and Titans on Sunday. We're going to start with Indiana and Notre Dame. Of course, that is the big game this weekend. Coming up at 10:20, I've got Destin Adams of A to Z Sports. We're going to talk a little Colts. Coming up at 11, first-time guest Taylor Langston is going to join. We're going to talk college football playoff. And then at 11:40, my guy Zack Gray is joining. We're going to talk bets. And then, of course, we're going to get into, the college football playoff because that's just kind of where that conversation seems to always go. But Indiana, Notre Dame tonight. My official prediction is Indiana covers the 7, but Notre Dame wins the game. I got to be honest, as I was sitting down last night trying to figure out who to pick, why to pick, and all those things, I really didn't know. Okay, now every expert is picking Indiana, which is highly concerning. That's why I'm taking Notre Dame. I really feel like I cheated here because I'm taking Notre Dame to cover, but I'm taking Indiana to cover, but I'm taking Notre Dame to win. So we'll see. I expect for both of these teams to be completely and fully prepared just because, they've had 3 weeks to get ready for this game, which is kind of insane. And when you give some of the best teams in the country this much time to prepare, then they should be good to go. They should have good, solid game plans. I expect for both teams, both offenses to come out with their scripted plays and put up some yards and potentially some points early. But I do think that it's going to settle down here at some point, right? And at that point, it'll be a long, slow, grinded out, tough, physical, defensive game. That is what I expect for this game to turn into, even if the offenses do get off to a fast start. Now, the reason why I'm taking Notre Dame is because, like every other game, this is going to come down to players. Okay, coaches are very important, but I think that when you have this much time to prepare and to get ready, the coaching stuff, I'm not going to say it goes out the window because in-game decisions are still important, but it just becomes lesser of an emphasis. And Notre Dame has better players than Indiana. That is just the simple fact of the matter. This Notre Dame offensive line is better than Indiana's offensive line. And Notre Dame's defensive line is better than Indiana's defensive line. And Notre Dame's secondary is better than Indiana's secondary. And I could just keep working my way down the list because it seems like Indiana has lesser players, not bad players, obviously. I mean, they're in the college football playoff for crying out loud, but lesser players than Notre Dame at every spot except for quarterback, which is why Indiana has a chance in this game. And I, like everybody else, am going to compare this game to the Ohio State game because that's the only good team that Indiana has played all year long. And when you go back and you watch that Indiana versus Ohio State game, you'll realize that Indiana lost because Ohio State has a bunch of players that are going to play in the NFL. And Indiana has 4 or 5 guys that are going to play in the NFL. And I think that tonight, when we see these two teams take the field, that fact will be obvious. Okay, we're going to see two teams take the field, and it's going to be pretty evident that Notre Dame has a bunch of guys that are going to play on Sundays, and Indiana doesn't, and that will be the difference. Okay, Notre Dame is going to have an NFL-level player on offense or defense make 2 or 3 plays that only NFL-level players make, and that will be the difference in the game. Okay, this is going to be a high-level, close football game. I think it's going to feel really similar to an NFL game in the idea that every NFL game is decided by 3 or 4 plays. And usually the more talented team makes those plays. And I think Notre Dame is simply more talented than Indiana. So I have to take them. But with that being said, I do have Indiana covering. So if they won, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. It's not supposed to snow in South Bend tonight, even though it's snowing pretty good here in Indy, which I hate. I hate the snow. Anyway, it's not supposed to snow tonight in South Bend. It's just supposed to be freezing cold. So I don't think weather is really going to be all that impactful. Also, if you hear a talking head talk about how weather's going to be really important in all these different games, you should turn them off. Just saying. Anyway, this is going to have to be a big game from Curtis Rourke. I said it earlier. Notre Dame is better at every position than Indiana, except for quarterback, which means that Curtis Rourke has to be the difference maker if Indiana wants to go on the road to Notre Dame and pull off the upset. Okay, he is where the Hoosiers have the advantage. He has to be better than Riley Leonard if Indiana wants to win this game. Okay, he can't go 8 for 18 for less than 70 yards if Indiana wants to win this game. He's going to have to find a way to be productive, right? Like I don't expect for Indiana to dominate the game on the ground like they have against other teams because Notre Dame is really tough up front, right? They're getting they've had a defensive tackle who's missed their last 3 games. It seems like he's going to come back and play. So that's going to bulken up this Notre Dame defensive line. So because I don't expect for Indiana to just run the football all over the place, they're going to have to throw it. Curtis Rourke has to be on time, on target. Receivers have to get open, and the offensive line has to give Curtis Rourke a little bit of time to complete passes because that was the issue in that game against Ohio State. They just couldn't seem to pick up any sort of blitz, which was problematic. So that issue has to be ironed out. This is how Indiana wins this game, though. Curtis Rourke shows up and plays a really good game, which is possible because he's a good player. Okay, I have no faith in Notre Dame to throw the football tonight, but they're going to have enough success running the ball to score points against Indiana and to put some pressure on them. Okay, it's not going to be some insurmountable amount of points. Like if Notre Dame hangs 45, I'll be surprised. I'm expecting it to be somewhere between 24 and 28 points, which is enough to win, especially when you have a defense as good as Notre Dame's. Right? This Notre Dame offensive line is absolutely loaded. They've got NFL dudes on this offensive line, and that's a huge advantage for them. Okay, Jeremiah Love is an excellent running back. They are going to run the ball well against Indiana because this is just what Notre Dame does. And look, if you're able to run the ball, then you're going to score points. Okay, my concern, though, isn't about the Indiana defense because they've been, the better of the 2 units this year, even against the better opponents. Okay, yes, Notre Dame's going to score some points, but I do expect for this Indiana defense to hold their own. The question is the offense. Can the offense do enough against a good Notre Dame defense to win the game? Okay, because look, against the 2 best defenses we've seen Indiana play, they've struggled. Right now, they have a chance to redeem those performances, and it starts with Curtis Rourke. He has to play one of the better games of his career for Indiana to go to South Bend and to win. Right, and while I'd rather have him than Riley Leonard, I think we'll see something similar to what we saw against Ohio State. When he has time to throw the football, he'll be good. I'm just not convinced that this offensive line is going to be able to give him time to throw the ball. They struggled to block against Michigan, against Ohio State. They couldn't handle the blitz, and I'm kind of expecting for something similar to happen tonight. The lack of offensive line talent for the Hoosiers will be the difference as to why they lose. When it comes to Colts and Titans, this is going to be a really ugly game, and I like the Colts to win this ugly affair. Okay, neither one of these teams are any good. Sure, the Colts still have a slight chance to make the playoffs. Those chances went down after the Chargers won last night. But you and I both know that they aren't that good. The Colts, okay, 1-7 against teams with a winning record. And when it comes to this game, Anthony Richardson's probably going to complete 48% of his passes again. And when you struggle to throw the ball that much, it's hard to win games. Okay, this is another game where it's going to be about getting Jonathan Taylor going on the ground because every single Colts game is about getting Jonathan Taylor going on the ground. And if Jonathan Taylor gets going on the ground, then the Colts will probably win. And if they don't, then they'll probably lose. That's kind of been the story for the Colts all season long. The Colts should have plenty of success defensively because they're playing Mason Rudolph, known as Check Down Charlie in Nashville, according to Brent Doherty, who joined us yesterday. Mason Rudolph is not very good. That is the very simple reality of what we're going to see on Sunday. The Titans are not going to score very many points against this Colts defense because they have a quarterback that can't run, can't throw. It's going to be a really ugly offensive performance from the Titans. Okay. And that's why they're going to struggle, not because this Colts defense is any good. These are two bad offenses and two competent defenses, defenses that are capable of getting stops, but, you wouldn't say that they're good defenses. They're fine. They're average. Best way to really put it. And so I just expect this game to be really ugly. I'm expecting turnovers and 3-and-outs. And, like if a block punt decided the game, like that would make a lot of sense to me because this game is going to be ugly. With that being said, the Colts do have a better roster than the Titans. They're relatively healthy. The Colts have a mobile quarterback, quarterbacks like Mason Rudolph, who just hang out in the pocket behind bad offensive lines, tend to not win games. Whereas if you have a mobile quarterback behind a bad offensive line, they can, create some magic from time to time and give your team a chance. And we've seen Anthony Richardson do that time and time again this year. That has been the best part of watching him play quarterback, the athleticism to avoid, being sacked and all those things. And, when it comes to Mason Rudolph and this Titans offense, Brent Doherty, he said it yesterday here on this show that the Titans have a struggling offensive line, right? Like they've got issues at right tackle and all those things. And this Colts pass rush has been really solid this year, right? Like there are some games where you're like, geez, that Colts pass rush it's pretty good. And then there's other games where it's like, I thought this Colts pass rush was supposed to be pretty good, right? So they've been up and down. I'm expecting for this to be a game where they're up because once again, this Tennessee Titans offensive line is terrible. And I do think that that's going to be the difference in the game. The Titans with their immobile Mason Rudolph quarterback is going to have struggles throwing the football. Whereas because of Anthony Richardson's athleticism, where even if, Jeffrey Simmons and this Titans defensive line do generate a pass rush, Anthony Richardson's athletic ability will allow him to extend some plays and make just a couple extra ones that Mason Rudolph doesn't. And that will be the difference. I expect for this Colts defensive line to dominate this Tennessee Titans offense. And that's going to be the difference in the game. I don't know if you knew this, but DeForest Buckner is a leader now. So he's going to play great. I don't expect Anthony Richardson or Mason Rudolph to put their teams on their backs. So someone else is going to have to step up. Another unit is going to have to step up, right? If your quarterback isn't going to win the game for you, then you'd better impact the other one a ton. I expect for this Colts defensive line to do that. Juju Brents, I believe, is going to be back this week. That's big for this Colts secondary. Maybe they force an extra turnover because of that. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, I think this game's going to be really ugly. If I bet one way or the other, I don't know what the over-under is, but I would probably take the under. I'm going to take the Colts to win really ugly, 21-17. I think, once again, we see this Colts defensive line, do their damage, and then we see Anthony Richardson make just enough plays to find a way to win these games. I think someone just posted. Gosh dang it. There it is. Golly. All right, here's what has to happen for the Colts to make the playoffs after the Chargers won last night. So the Chargers now have to lose to both the Patriots and the Raiders. That's probably not going to happen. The Ravens have to go 0-3 against the Steelers, Texans, and Browns, which probably won't happen, but I don't think that'd be the most shocking thing in the world. Or Denver would have to go 0-2 against the Bengals and the Chiefs. That's possible. And the Bengals or Miami would have to win out. So there's three different ways for the Colts to make the playoffs, but none of it matters if they don't win on Sunday. So will they make the playoffs? More than likely not, but there is a chance. And when there's a chance, I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say after that. Anyway, big show today. Destin Adams, he's set to join the show here in about 5 minutes. He's from A to Z Sports. He covers the Colts. He's going to join me here at 10:20. First-time guest, Taylor Langston. He's going to join the show coming up at 11. And then to close the show, 11:40, Zack Gray at ZG The Grapevine. He's going to join me as he does every Friday, and we're going to talk sports gambling. He's been, a little cold here recently in the world of college basketball, but he's done a really good job of betting college football and all of the bowl games. So once again, loaded lineup today. Destin Adams in about 5 minutes, Taylor Langston in 45 minutes, and my guy, Zack Gray, coming up in a little over an hour. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, we're going to talk Colts, Titans, and probably a little bit of IU Notre Dame with Destin Adams.
This holiday season, Straight Talk Wireless is letting you say yes a lot more with real unlimited data. Yes to sharing pics of the ugliest holiday sweaters. Yes to checking weather on the go for surprise sledding trips. And with a free phone at sign up, let the yes-tivities begin.
No way!
Yes way. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart or straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 1/5/25 while supplies last at participating stores. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation on select single line plans. Limit of 2 phones per customer. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
Welcome to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast.
Lionel Luthor stops by the kid home.
Is that Seinfeld? What is the deal?
Trying to blackmail her for the footage.
Come on. He sees an envelope and goes, he must be getting blackmailed.
He's behind it, the whole thing.
He's not.
He is. He made her think she was being
he's the
blackmailed.
one
Yeah.
that... Oh, I didn't get that.
I was surprised. Yeah. That was a great scene.
Interesting things of note.
Talkville, wherever you listen.
Hey, tired of joint pain and looking for an alternative to surgery with no downtime? Call QC Kinetics today, 317-559-PAIN. Schedule a free consultation. Take action to live your best life with limited loss of wages. Call QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN.
Often imitated, never duplicated. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket, trying to get you ready for Indiana Notre Dame tonight and Colts Titans on Sunday. Destin Adams of A to Z Sports covers the Colts for them. He joins the show. Destin, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, you got it. You got it. So after what happened last week in that Colts game, how do you think the Colts respond this week?
Yeah, I mean, last week I feel like they go into that game, they understand it's the biggest of the year. They start out fast and then they kind of just fall on their face, and it ends up being a multi-score loss. I feel like they have to understand that the rest of this way are must wins, just because their playoff odds are essentially on life support at this point. But I think more importantly, I think you have to finish these last three games in a positive note. And that means a result being a win, but it also means that these certain players have to be able to show that they can play better than what we saw last week, because these last 3 weeks are going to be huge for some big decisions that have to be made. I know a lot of people keep talking about, is blank going to be fired? Is Anthony Richardson going to be back as the quarterback? I think there's more decisions than that have to be made. So I think this Titans game is the start of what has to be a very good stretch for multiple players if they want to be here in 2025. So I definitely think it has to be high priority that they bounce back and show that, yes, last week happened. Yes, their playoff odds are really, really low right now, but they still have something to play for.
Who are some of those players that you think have to show something these last 3 weeks?
I think the first one, I think it's really convenient and great that he's able to hit the practice field again. I think Juju Brents is somebody who has not been able to be on the field, obviously, because of injuries. I think he needs to be able to show that he can be a part of their long-term future, because I really don't even know if that starting job is just going to be given to him again next year. So I really think he needs to go in and show that he can be a part of this defense and be a part of that corner rotation. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff on this offensive line that are going to have to get figured out. Like Ryan Kelly, for example, if he can get back out there and get off the IR this week and officially return to the field, his last 3 weeks are probably really, really major for him if he's trying to convince the team that he deserves one more contract before his tenure with the team is up, and with multiple young guys on the field already that have showed some talent. Like, it feels like an uphill battle for Kelly at this moment. And then I'd probably circle the entire tight end room. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, actually. When you're looking at the tight end room, obviously Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, they're on the last year of the contract anyway. But I think it's hilarious that if I had to pick the one tight end that is currently on this roster that I feel the most confident that will be a part of training camp next year, I'd probably say the one that's been a healthy scratch multiple times this year and say Will Mallory.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like, at least with Will Mallory, you can make the argument of, like, do we know 100% what we have in this kid yet? Whereas I think we've seen what we have in the rest of the tight end room, and I don't think anyone feels like they need to see it again.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees with that. Joined by Destin Adams, Colts beat writer and NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports. Yeah, the tight end room has been obviously a major place of concern. I'm done with Granson. I thought he was. The interesting thing with Granson is, like, I thought he was really good last year with Minshew, and he's just had all these drops this year. I kind of expected him to be tight end number one this year, and that hasn't really happened. And I think you're exactly right. All those guys in that room, with the exception of Will Mallory, are, they've all got something to play for. And that's the really interesting thing about the NFL. Like, teams tend to not roll over because you're constantly playing for that next contract and all those things. I want to switch gears here for a second and talk about Steichen, because as you said, like, there's conversation that I'm not too sure I agree with on whether or not he should be back. Just like the idea of having that conversation after 2 years feels a little early. But I think something that's been a major talking point, throughout the last 2 years has been the development of Anthony Richardson, right? Like this is he hasn't played a ton of, quarterback and all those things. Like, is he getting better? When I feel like we should ask the same thing about Steichen. Like, has he improved as a head coach? Because this is his first head coaching job in the NFL. So do you feel like Steichen has improved as a head coach from last year to this year?
It's a good question. I really feel like you leave year one with the team being 2 successful plays away from winning the division and going to the playoffs. You have a backup quarterback due to Anthony Richardson's basically missing the entirety of his rookie season. I feel like everyone leaves year one with a positive taste in their mouth of what they feel about Shane Steichen, and I feel like there was so much morale boost even with missing the playoffs. And now a year later, they're in position to where if they win out, they could be in the exact same situation outside of Richardson played the majority of this season. And I think people would look at this season as a playing lower than expectation. So it's always funny how much different a year can go. But I don't know if I haven't seen Shane Steichen make many improvements this year. I think play calling wise, there have been games where we've definitely seen regression. I haven't seen this team just look completely prepared at any point this season, to be honest. So I definitely think it's fair to have those questions. But like I said, you leave year one with such a great reaction to what you saw from Steichen. I don't think 1 year of falling below expectations should get you fired in the NFL. And that's my personal opinion. I know everyone has their own when it comes to these things. But I'm never a person that thinks if you decide to make it that higher, unless it's atrocious what you see on the field, that you should be a 1 year coach. So having one bad season in his position, I would be very shocked to see him go. Now, I honestly I don't even know if we have this conversation about Shane Steichen being on the hot seat if you didn't have a GM who's been here for 9 years and allowed him to hire his for all purposes, his third head coach, if you count McDaniel's fiasco. If this is the first-time GM and a first-time head coach together tied at the hip, I don't think these conversations are being had at all. But the Colts decided to take an approach that typically does not work in the NFL, and they kind of have to live with that now. And we'll have to see what they decide to do.
Yeah, no doubt. As you said, like the Steichen stuff, I don't really feel like he's improved either. I think my 2 big complaints for Steichen this year, it would be, when you look at last year, like a lot is going to be made of that Texans game, right? And the play call, the swing pass to Tyler Goodson and the drop and everything. My bigger issue with last year was if you beat the Taylor Heineke Falcons and the Jake Browning Bengals, then that game against Houston doesn't even matter. And you're in. And then you look at this year and we're obviously going to think a lot about that game against Denver. But if you beat, the Malik Willis Packers in week 2 and you score more than 10 points, then, you have a much better chance at making the playoffs now, as opposed to, obviously, as we all know, they lost that game. And so I was kind of hoping to see Shane Steichen win all the games that he was supposed to. And I don't feel like he did that last year or this year. And then the other thing is late game play calls. Like last year, the swing pass was fine. I just wish that it had been to not Tyler Goodson, maybe to Jonathan Taylor or one of your better players. And then this year, we see him call a double pass to a rookie wide receiver who has been inconsistent to say the least. So those are kind of my 2 biggest complaints about him from last year and this year, I guess, is just not learning from his mistakes. Do you understand that? Does that make sense? Is that a fair critique to have of Steichen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the winning those quote unquote people would write in as you should have won those games. I think that's always something important to look back on. And the Colts have had a few of those every single year. Now, I think usually they also have a couple of wins where you're like, man, how did they find a way to beat X playoff team that just looks significantly better than the Colts? I mean, this year, the only one of those that you're going to look back on and say, wow, shocked that was one of the Colts wins is probably the Pittsburgh game via how well Pittsburgh has played defensively this season. But there's going to be multiple, I guess, you could probably come back to throughout this year and say, man, they really would be in such a better position if they just pull out that game. That the one against the Packers is a really good one, especially knowing that it was just such a terrible performance all around. You lose that game to Jacksonville, which obviously you lose in Jacksonville every year now at this point. But this is a very bad Jacksonville team. Having that loss on the season also, it hurts. And I think when you're talking a little bit about Steichen as well, I mean, I think that play to Adonai Mitchell is not talked about enough because, it was a weird play call. And trick plays, if they work, you're a genius. If they don't, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But, I think a big thing with Steichen, and I think a lot of play callers on both sides of the ball deal with this early in their tenures when they first get that job, is understanding the flow of the game and the timing of these calls is almost as important as the scheme itself. And I feel like Steichen has really struggled with, they practiced all week for this play, and he talked about that, and they really wanted to get it in there. But the flow of that game did not call for that type of trick play right in that way, just because they were already teetering in the wrong direction, and that essentially just lobbed the game all the way to Denver and took any momentum the Indy had possibly away. And they also put it on a guy who I hate that you put that in the hands of a rookie receiver who's had his struggles, not only because he's struggled, but also why put that type of play, that caliber of thing that can go so many different ways in a 21-year-old's hand who is just dying to make a play. Steichen says after the game, like we said, if it's there, throw it. If it's not, throw it out of bounds. In that situation, in that game, everyone's trying to make the play to finally bust through. You really think that 21-year-old is going to throw that ball out of bounds even if there's a chance that gets completed? No. That's just not going to happen. So I just don't think you should have put that kid in that position. And I hope that's one of the areas that he can grow the most in these last 3 games and next year, is understanding that the flow and timing in a game is so crucial, and you have to take that way more into account when going through these play calls.
Yeah, I completely agree. Joined by Destin Adams, Colts beat writer and NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports. So you mentioned Ballard a little bit earlier. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, it's the Colts made such a weird decision in the fact that they let the guy continuously make these head coaching hires, and it makes this situation so much harder because, as I said earlier, I'm in the camp that I have a really hard time saying Shane Steichen should be fired after one season that I feel like he fell lower than expectation. But firing a GM and saying to all the GM interviews that you have, our head coach is staying in place, like that, you really don't have a choice in that matter. You're going to struggle to be in contention for any of the top GM candidates, and you're going to have to get lucky to find a guy that the marriage would just work well. Because in history tells us it doesn't. History tells us that coach ends up being a one-year coach that then the GM wants to bring their own person in. And so that just creates a very sticky situation. to where it almost makes it that it might be better from a football construction standpoint to say, all right, the brass of Ballard, Steichen, Richardson are tied at the hip, and you get one more season. This is it. If you fall below expectation and you cannot show that the trajectory of this roster and this team is not pointing in the right direction, we have to go elsewhere, and that's a move on from all three of those major positions. That's probably the best thing you can do, but I mean, I couldn't fault anyone for feeling like the Chris Ballard tenure needs to come to an end after 9 seasons and no division championships and only 2 playoff appearances.
Yeah, joined by Destin Adams, Colts beat writer and NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are at. The issue is, I think they're gonna run it back one more year. You know, Ballard is extended through 2026. So, you know, Frank Reich is still being paid as well. And so to pay, 3 guys that no longer work for you, I think that's hard for any owner to do. So I think we're going to see it for one more year. And if it's, if it falls under expectations again, then I do think that we'll see them both fired. If, if the Colts get a lot of help and sneak into the playoffs, does your opinion on Ballard change?
I don't think so. I mean, I just think we're in a spot that Chris Ballard has showed us time and time again what he is as a general manager. We know the positives. We know the negatives. Like, I don't know if anything really changes how I would look at it, to be honest, at this point. I just think for his style, I probably feel very similar to Chris Ballard as general manager as I do about the Gus Bradley and Matt Eberflus style defenses in the NFL at this point. Like, if you can construct the exact roster they need, that defense can work in the NFL still. It's just when you have to have so many things go well for it to work, I become a skeptic just because in my experience covering this team, typically things don't fall the perfect way.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're relying on, I think that becomes just a very big issue, and you're kind of just playing a dangerous game.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it as well. Do you have? Or let me ask you this first, but before I move to that, do you think the Colts win out?
I'm gonna say yes. I think the 3 teams you have left on your schedule are teams that all have major stakes in this upcoming draft, and I think a win for any of those 3 teams could be just devastating to what they want to do with the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars. So I feel like the Colts have a reason to win games. Those 3 teams have a big reason to lose games. So I just don't think it'll end up being a situation to where the Colts get caught on a loss. So I probably have them winning out. They still need some help if they're going to get to the playoffs, obviously. But as I said earlier, I think winning out morale-wise and just some of these players being able to show what they can do can have a lot of value for 2025 still.
I hope you're right, because morale feels at an all-time low. Joined by Destin Adams, Colts beat writer and NFL draft analyst for A to Z Sports. 2 more questions for you, and I will let you go. Are you a fan of NFL games on Christmas Day?
Man, I understand it just because the reason the NFL is doing it is because the NBA has been able to capitalize on that market for so long. So, I mean, I get it, but also I hate it. I hate that every holiday that I have with family, it's also, and I'm part of the problem because the game's on, I want it to be on as well. But the fact that all those holidays, there is now an NFL game to be watched on it, it seems a little just overdone at this point. And I kind of feel for those athletes out there that like for the ones that have to go on the road and not even getting to like go home to their families right away after a game, especially the night game for those ones. It's just a very tough thing. But I mean, the NFL and every professional league has shown time and time again, if there's a way to profit off of something, they're going to consider it. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, as a guy who loves the NBA, I hate this because I'm going to spend Christmas at my parents' house and I'm going to be like, hey, can we turn on one of the NBA games? And I'm going to get overruled like, nah, Jonathan, we're going to watch the NFL. And I'm just like, all right, that's fine. That works. Last question for you, Destin, and I'll let you go. Any thoughts on IU and Notre Dame tonight?
I mean, this is a big one for the state for multiple reasons, obviously. First 12-team playoff ever. The fact that it has 2 teams from Indiana is already pretty awesome, let alone the fact that they got matched up in round 1. Did that play a factor in how they made the bracket? If you ask me, probably. They'll say no. But if I had to guess, probably. I'm a big IU fan, lifelong IU fan. So I mean, this is obviously the biggest game in program history, and the fact that you're even here is pretty awe-inspiring, to be honest. And I love the fact that I think most teams of IU's caliber that get to this point would be in a situation that we're just happy to be here, and I think this team is far from that.
Do you think they win tonight?
Sorry, everything went mute for a second. I'm back.
You're good.
But I love that this team is not just happy to be here, and I'm really excited for the game tonight. I will say, trying to take my fan glasses off for the Hoosiers, I really like the matchup and senses of Notre Dame. The games where they look dominant are games they lean heavily on the run game, and Indiana has stopped some really good running teams this year, especially down the stretch when they're playing their best ball against the run. So it'll be really interesting to see which team's strength comes out on top. Obviously, I'm rocking with the Hoosiers.
Okay, I like it. Indiana's got the number 1 ranked or the number 1 run defense in the country, only giving up 70 yards on the ground per game, which is a pretty crazy stat. I think you're exactly right. There's a lot of strength on strength. I've got no worries about the IU defense. I just don't know if they're going to score enough. That's my concern.
Yeah, the offensive line has had a rough end of the year. Obviously, some injuries playing factors into that after a really strong start. But they allowed Ohio State to get whatever they wanted off the defensive line in terms of pass rush, in terms of stopping the run against us. I think Purdue, even early on, you saw some struggles against their pass rush. Obviously, that one didn't matter as much at the end of that score. But I think Notre Dame's front is better than what we saw with Ohio State. So I think they're going to have to come and play. You're going to have to keep Curtis Rourke upright and give him time to make plays, because he's shown all year. If you give him enough time to let things develop, like, he'll make the right play. It's just you cannot have a situation to where you're playing behind the 8 ball constantly because you can't get drives strung together.
No doubt. Destin, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
See ya. That is Destin Adams of A to Z Sports, where he covers the Colts and he covers the NFL draft. You can follow him on Twitter at the Destin Adams. When we come back here in about 3 minutes, I'm going to give you all of my predictions for the first round of the college football playoff.
Unfiltered takes live here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, the Indy Sports Ticket app, or in your car, 1430 AM. Big shout out to Destin for coming on. We got another guest coming up here in about 12 minutes, my guy, Taylor Langston. Someone said that I needed some more new guests, so I went out and I got one, all right? And then, of course, at 11:40, Zack Gray with some bets. So, college football playoff round 1. I am at this point where I think that the gap between the first college football playoff game and the conference championship games, there's too big of a gap. It's like 2 weeks. And that's too long. I feel like it is. I know that that's ridiculous, but I feel like we get the announcement and then all of the momentum just like stops, right? Like you get the announcement, everyone's like excited. It's like, cool, like college football playoff, let's go. These are the matchups. And then we talk through the matchups and then that's really it. And then we kind of stop. I mean, the conference championship games were played, the 7th. So that's what, two weeks ago? Yeah. Like, let's just roll straight into it. Like, next week, let's play. Seriously, because, I mean, Indiana and Notre Dame haven't played in 3 weeks. Like, that is a really long gap. I also think that because the gap is so wide, we have to hear annoying people talk about the weather in these games, which is the most overblown thing. I am so sick of turning on, ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever podcast I'm listening to, and hearing people talk about the freaking weather in these games. It is the most overblown thing. It is the most, I don't know what else to talk about this game, so I'm going to talk about the weather. Like that's what this has become. Tennessee is more than capable of winning at Ohio State because, believe it or not, it snows in Tennessee, for one. And for two, like the cold weather is not going to play that big of a role in this game because Ohio State actually has a lot of guys from Florida and Georgia and Texas. Okay, like SMU going to Penn State, it's the exact same thing. Like Penn State has guys on their roster from Florida, Georgia, and Texas. And guess what? SMU has guys on their roster that are from the Midwest. So this whole weather thing is just blown completely out of proportion. And plus, those teams, they're going to bring heaters and all sorts of things, okay? Like this, I just don't want to hear about the weather in these games anymore. It is the most overblown thing I have ever heard, okay? To a point where it's insanely stupid. College football playoff round 1 predictions. I'm going to give you my national champ here as well. Clemson at Texas. I'm going to take Texas to cover the 11.5 points. Texas is just way more talented than Clemson. We've seen Clemson play, a couple really good teams. Lost both of them, okay? Lost to South Carolina at home, got blown out by Georgia. Texas, talent-wise, is on a similar level to Georgia. I think they're going to blow Clemson out of the water. I like Texas to cover that 11.5. Penn State, I'm going to take them to cover the 8.5 against SMU. This is another game where I think Penn State's talent is just going to overwhelm SMU. SMU hasn't beaten a ranked team all year. They're 0-2 against ranked teams. They lost to BYU and to Clemson, 2 teams that I don't think are really all that good. We've seen Penn State, play Oregon tough. That, we saw them beat Illinois. So, like, there's a little bit more faith there. I'm going to take James Franklin and Penn State to beat SMU pretty handily. I think they cover that 8.5 point spread. Tennessee at Ohio State. Tennessee covers the 7.5 points. Ohio State, they've got some issues on the offensive line. They've got some injuries. Tennessee's defensive line, it's nasty. I think this game's going to be incredibly physical. Both of these offenses can be a little up and down. I think Ohio State wins, but Tennessee covers that 7.5 point spread. I just trust Will Howard more than Nico Iamaleava. So that's why I'm taking Ohio State to win the game. Of all the games, though, I do think this is the game most likely to result in a quote-unquote upset. It's the 8 and the 9 seed. Like, is it really an upset? I guess when you look at the line, it is. But Tennessee, they're going to come out. They're going to look to run the ball if they're capable of being really explosive. So there's definitely some things to worry about with the Vols if you are an Ohio State fan. Once again, Tennessee covers the 7.5, but Ohio State wins that game at home. And then, of course, I've got Indiana covering tonight, but Notre Dame winning. Notre Dame has more good players, and I'm just going to take the team that has more good players. Okay, now if Curtis Work comes out and plays really well, then Indiana can undoubtedly win that football game. For my official prediction of who's going to win the whole thing, I am going to take Georgia. Okay, I'm not betting against Kirby Smart. Okay, there's obviously some concerns with the offense with Carson Beck, running out there, his arm super limp in that SEC title game. But I mean, their offense looked better when he went out against the Longhorns anyway. So when it comes to Georgia, though, like the defense is nasty. I expect them to find a way to run the football. If Carson Beck doesn't play, I'm not worried. They were better without him in the SEC title game. Most importantly, though, I'm not betting against Kirby Smart. He's the best coach in the field. He's one of two coaches that's coaching in these final 12 teams that have won it before. The other one is obviously Dabo Swinney, and his team isn't very good. So I'm going to take Georgia. They've proven it time and time again that they can beat anybody. Like they've got a bunch of ranked wins against good teams. They've been tested more than anyone else. They've proven more than anyone else that they deserve to be here. So I'm going to take them to win the whole thing. I trust this Georgia team more than anyone else, even though I probably shouldn't, given some of the issues that they've had at quarterback. So first hour in the books. Taylor Langston, new guest here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. He's going to join me here in about 5 minutes. We're going to continue to talk about the college football playoff. We're going to continue to talk about Indiana, Notre Dame, the biggest game in the history of Indiana football. It's going to be a blast. Taylor Langston, he's set to join the show here in about 5 minutes.
It's time for the real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. So, I was doing the show the other day, and I had someone comment on the YouTube stream, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there, watch over there, and subscribe. I got this comment, and it was like, Jonathan, can you change up the guests a little bit? It feels like we're getting a lot of the same people, which was, a pretty fair critique of the show. So last night I was sitting around and I was like, I need someone new. Who's like an older guy that I could bring in from my past. And I landed on my guy, Taylor Langston, who joins the show now. When I was doing my college radio show a long time ago, I had Taylor on all the time. He always does a great job. Taylor, what is going on, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? A little disappointed. My first description is old, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
I meant as in like a blast from the past. I mean, we're going back 7 years. That's when I started the radio show at Henderson. So I meant like old as in like from my past.
There we go. I like that more. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Of course. I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk when I say this, but I mean, as you know, Taylor, we just do college football in the South a little bit differently than they do here in the Midwest, especially at Indiana. So I was like, I need a real college football vet to come on today to talk about this. And so I want to start with the game tonight, Indiana and Notre Dame. I like Indiana to cover the 7. But I like for Notre Dame to win. What do you kind of think about this matchup, and who do you like?
I like Notre Dame too. I like them to cover. I like the Notre Dame to win by quite a bit, by at least double digits. I think Riley Leonard. It's got to change at some point. I think he's such a good athlete. I don't know if Indiana's played anybody like him all year. Let him and Jeremiah Love go, but yeah, I think I'm taking Notre Dame by a lot, and I hate to say that. So
is it? But what about the throwing the football aspect of it? Because look, Indiana's schedule hasn't been great this year. With that being said, they still have the number one run defense in the country. Or is there not like a part of you that's concerned of like, what if Riley Leonard has to throw the ball 35 times tonight?
Yeah, I think with the snow, with the weather there, I think that plays into, Notre Dame running the ball. I think if Indiana's going to have a chance, they need Aiden Fisher to have a big game at linebacker. He's got crazy numbers this year. But I don't think Notre Dame's going to have to throw it this evening. I think they run it in the snow. Old school football.
It really is going to be. Like, these are two teams that love to run the ball. What has to happen then for Indiana to win?
They've got, like I said, Aiden Fisher has to have a big game, has to stop, first off, Jeremiah Love. I assume we're going to have some, quarterback read with Leonard and Love. But if you can stop Leonard and Love on the ground, I think that's a big part of it. I think that kind of gets you on the right track. And then let Roark just throw the ball around, just put it in his hands. He's 27 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. Put a lot of trust in him, but I just don't see it going that way. But that's their path to win, in my opinion.
That's where I'm at. Like, you have to make Notre Dame throw the ball. I don't think that Notre Dame wants to throw it. They're like 470th in pass attempts this year, that's really low. Like, in 7 of Notre Dame's 12 games this year, Riley Leonard's thrown the ball less than 25 times. And so, like, I don't think that they want to throw it. So I'm with you. Like, you have to make Riley Leonard drop back and pass it. And then when I look at just like the rosters, Notre Dame's is just better. Like, they've got more guys that are going to play in the NFL than IU does. And so I really feel like the only advantage that the Hoosiers have is with Roark at the quarterback spot. I like him more than Leonard. So I'm with you in terms of Roark has to have a big game. You brought up the weather. And Taylor, if I can just be honest, I'm so sick of people talking about the weather in all of these games. I think it is the most, we've been waiting for these games to happen for 2 weeks now, and we're out of things to say. So we're going to talk about the weather. Do you feel that way too?
Outside my house, it's, about 60 degrees right now. So I don't know what this weather thing you're talking about. We're down here in God's country in Arkansas. But no, I agree. I think, I don't know. Like I said, I think if Rourke can, handle the weather, handle the snow. I don't know. I've never played football in the snow, so I don't know how tough it is, but everybody is making a big deal out of it. And I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact, but, I still think that's why Notre Dame wins. So,
joined by Taylor Langston, running through the college football playoff games, obviously starting with Indiana and Notre Dame tonight. So you may have never played football in the snow, but I mean, we've played baseball in 20-degree weather, and does it suck? Yes. But I don't think it has that big of an impact. And I get that football and baseball are different, but I don't know. Do you think there's any correlation there?
I think it depends on who you got. If you got Josh Allen, it doesn't matter, but there's not a whole lot of those guys walking around. My prediction, I think Rourke's got small hands. He's not going to be able to grip the ball. The ball's going to be icy. I think he just doesn't have the big hands. So it's going to come out in the combine.
That's exactly right. You know what small hands means, right?
Yep. Small gloves.
That's right. Small gloves. Let's move to another place where it could snow. SMU going on the road to play Penn State. I read this the other day. James Franklin, I think, has beaten 3 top 10 teams during his time at Penn State, and he would have to win that many games against top 10 opponents to win the title, which is kind of insane. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do like them to win and cover against SMU, favored by 8.5. I just think that Penn State's way more talented than SMU, and that's really kind of where it ends for me. What do you kind of make of that game?
I think this is just that typical, everybody gets behind Penn State because they're always kind of this 6 to 10 ranked team, and I'm calling it upset. I'm going with Rhett Lashley. I'm going with the Hogs. I'm going with SMU. I think Jennings is very dynamic. He's used his legs some this year, but not. He's a throw first. And I think Jennings is going to have to use his legs. But I see Penn State kind of laying an egg, and that's my upset. That's my upset out of this crew. So
I like it. Not really. I don't know, man. We've seen SMU play 2 good teams this year, maybe good teams. I don't know if I'd call them good or not. Clemson and BYU, they lost both by 3. Is it just you like Kevin Jennings and you think that his athleticism is going to give Penn State problems? Is it more about Penn State just seems to never really show up in games like this? I guess, is it only about Jennings, or is there something more to it than just that?
Hey, as the great Uncle Colin Coward says, sometimes you just got to pick a better quarterback, And Drew Aller's played extremely well this year. I mean, compared to last year, he's made strides, but I just think Jennings is more dynamic. I think he's going to give him trouble. I think, and everybody thinks Penn State has this, layup to get to the Final Four, and I just see them kind of laying an egg like normal. So yeah, I'm taking Uncle Colin approach.
Okay.
Better quarterback.
I don't mind it. I like it. Next game is Clemson going on the road to Texas. It's really interesting. No one's talking about the weather in this game. I don't really know why. I like Texas kind of for the same reason. We've seen Clemson, they played Georgia earlier in the year and they got blown out 34-3. Texas, hasn't been as good as I think people expected for them to be this year. But I think Texas is itching for an opportunity to kind of show people that, our 2 losses were to Georgia, who's really good, and we haven't played anyone else ranked outside of that. I think Texas makes a real statement here, and they blow Clemson out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on that side. Do you think Ewers is healthy? I mean, what do you think's going on with him? Do you think we see Arch?
I think, I think he's banged up. Ewers is. he hasn't been the same, which is a slight cause for concern. I think Coach Sarkisian's been pretty clear that like I think if we see Arch, it'll be kind of in the same format we've seen him throughout the year, where he comes in and he runs like a read option in the red zone. I think that if they were going to make the switch to Arch Manning, it would have happened earlier in the year when Quinn Ewers was really, really bad. Not now.
Yeah.
In what is the biggest game of their season.
Yeah. And I don't see them struggling with Clemson, so I don't see them using them but I could see in this playoff Ewers kind of struggling and later on and possibly Arch coming in. I just think he gives that the dynamic run option there. And Ewers hadn't looked the same, in my opinion, since his oblique injury. But yeah, I'm with you though. I'm on the Texas side here. I got Texas going a long ways. My Arkansas blood hates that, but got to put it aside.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Joined by my good friend Taylor Langston. We're talking college, the college football playoff. Last game tomorrow night. What I think is going to be the best game, Tennessee on the road at Ohio State. I've got Zack Gray coming on here in like 30 minutes. And as soon as I tell him that you were on the show, he's going to ask. We were texting a bit last night, so I know who you're picking. The audience does not, though. So go ahead and tell them why you have who you have.
Gosh, this one's for Zach. I think I may hate picking this more than I do Texas, but I'm going with the Bucks. I just think they've been getting destroyed in the media the past 3 weeks since the Michigan game. I see, their defense has played really good all year. I think Will Howard, I think they put trust in him. I see them going on a run. I see them beating Tennessee pretty handily. But, and Ryan Day's job is kind of on the line in a way. And it's crazy to say that, but yeah, I'm taking Ohio State. I am. And I think they go on a run, and I'm jumping ahead here. I got Texas, Ohio State in the finals. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I've got Ohio State winning, but I do think that Tennessee covers. I just think that when you have a defensive line as good as the Vols do, like, you have a real opportunity to disrupt the quarterback. And if your quarterback's, disrupted and running for his life, it doesn't matter if you have Jeremiah Smith and these guys on the outside that are going to be an advantage for Ohio State in every game that they play. I think that this defensive line from Tennessee kind of helps to negate that advantage a little bit. I think that, Tennessee, like, Josh Heupel's a really good, offensive coach, because he's had, 3 weeks to prepare and self-scout and get ready. I think that they're going to have a lot of more explosive plays than what we've kind of seen from them this year. But I am going to take Ohio State just because I trust Will Howard more than Nico Iamaleava. I just think that if you go into Fayetteville and you lose to Arkansas, I can't pick you to beat Ohio State. That's just
hey, if Tennessee beats Ohio State, that just means Arkansas would handily beat Ohio State this year. That's the way
I'm throwing that at Zack Gray. I can tell you that right now.
Hey, a lot of pressure on Zach this weekend. Then
seriously, if Ohio State wins, do you think Ryan Day will call out Lou Holtz again?
he's going to put his foot in his mouth 100% somehow. But I think they're too talented. I mean, they're so talented, and I just, I don't know how they. I don't know. And plus, I heard Iamaleava's younger brother is better than him anyway. So,
I hope so.
It's just
his name's Madden, so he has to be good. Isn't that how that works?
That's right. Yeah, I think so.
So, I've got 2 more questions for you, Taylor, and I will let you go. What are your thoughts on the transfer portal, and what are your thoughts on the ruling that JUCO years don't count against your 4 years playing, D1 or Division II or whatever?
I don't think the JUCO rule is going to hurt football. I'm kind of got mixed feelings about it on the football side. Baseball, I need to look that up more because it would just, there'd be no point to go to a Division I school if you're a high recruit. Just go JUCO, and you get drafted, and you don't have to, your years don't count against you if you go D1 after. So I don't really like it. I think it needs a tweak, the JUCO rule. And then also the portal. I love the portal, but I think there needs to be a tweak on the timing. I don't like the timing. Somebody said it the other day, these guys aren't going to school, if we're being honest. So why are we trying to make everything around the school schedule? So I don't know. I think there needs to be a tweak on both sides, but I like it. It's, college football's so entertaining now with the portal, even more entertaining. The loyalty side is a little skewed, but I like it. I think it makes it exciting. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Once again, joined by Taylor Langston, former college baseball teammate of mine, and just a guy who came on my radio show all the time back when I was in good old Arkadelphia. Yeah, I'm with you on the portal thing. The timing needs to change. This didn't come up whenever we were talking about SMU and Penn State, but Penn State's backup quarterback is transferring, and they have packages for him. And since he's not there anymore, Penn State's missing, I wouldn't call it an important element of their offense, but they're missing a guy who allows them to kind of throw a wrinkle at teams, which is problematic. So I'm with you on the timing. The JUCO thing is, I don't know. There needs to be some sort of, like you said, a tweak. If they don't want it to count against, then I don't think that you should be eligible for a red shirt or even a medical red shirt, because I just, I don't want 29-year-olds playing college football. I mean,
it's very hypocritical of me to not like the rule. I gotta like it because it I got about 7 years playing in college because of COVID, but COVID was a once in a lifetime thing. JUCO is not, so but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's baseball. The baseball side is going to be kind of odd with it.
You played a year at JUCO, right?
I did. I played 2 actually. So
okay.
I could have played 9 years in college if we had that rule. JUCO doesn't count.
Would you have wanted to do that?
I would have loved it. My fiance, I probably wouldn't have a fiance now if that was the case. But
probably not. That's funny. That's hilarious. I saw a thing the other day. Someone mapped out how someone could play 11 years of college football if they went JUCO 2 years. Because there's the tight end at Miami who it's his 9th year, and so which is just insane. That dude's 28 playing college football, and in theory he could be 2 years older. He could be 30.
Yeah, no, he could. And I mean, Cam Rising, he's going through. I guess he's going on year 8 or year 7 maybe coming up. But
the quarterback at Oklahoma State, it's going to be year 7 for him next year, which is just
okay.
What is that like? I mean, like you said, you played 7 years. What's it like going back for year 7?
It's very odd. I mean, you're playing with guys that were in 6th grade when you were a freshman in college, so it's definitely odd. But you just kind of. You gotta adapt. You're still a teammate, but you're kind of a, almost somebody like an older brother in a way. So it's definitely a little bit different, but wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, geez, 6th grade, that's crazy. That means that I was in 7th grade, your first year of college baseball. That's nuts.
That's right. And you were the best basketball player in Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville, in the 7th grade.
Yeah, even though
guaranteed.
For the audience who doesn't know, I had a really loud mouth when I showed up my freshman year in college. I was just a normal 18-year-old who didn't know how to shut up, and I said some really stupid things, like how I was the best basketball player in my city. And to be clear, there was a guy in my city who led the ACC in points per game and assists per game like 2 years ago. And so Yeah,
he lived on the outskirts. You know,
yeah,
he lived on the
yeah,
outskirts.
yeah, yeah. He didn't live in
That's what it
Jacksonville.
was.
He lived in Sherwood.
That's right. That's right.
Uh,
Oh yeah, no. John was always the one having hot takes at practice. It'd be everybody would be riled up because of John's hot take, and he loved it. He loved everybody getting on him. So you've always been good at it.
and then we'd scrimmage, and I'd like get jammed and muscle it over the third baseman's head, and then talk more crap. It was great.
It's a hit. It's a hit in the scorebook.
That's right. That's exactly. It's
barrel.
It's 100-mile-an-hour line drive right back up the middle in the scorebook, and that's all that matters. Taylor.
Oh, 100%.
Oh man, I've gone over on time. Taylor, thanks for your time, man.
Oh, thank you, John.
See you, buddy. That is Taylor Langston, former teammate of mine, big time college football guy. I had him on my show all the time when I was, not very good at this. And so, yeah, that was a blast. Zack Gray, he's set to join me here in like 20 minutes. Where I'm sure we'll talk about more stuff that T Lang and I just did. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, I'm going to talk a little more Indiana, Notre Dame. Might touch on Pacers and Suns last night as well. I've got a lot of notes on that game, so a little more football and some hoops coming your way here in about 3 minutes.
The best takes. The real Jonathan Smith Show. This is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Big thanks to Taylor Langston, who joined me in that last segment, talking a little college football playoffs. We're going to keep doing it. Indiana, Notre Dame tonight, and then I've got some thoughts on the Pacers, who are trending in the correct direction. Zack Gray is at ZG the Grapevine on Twitter. He's going to join me here in like 15 minutes, and we're going to talk a little more college football playoff, and we're going to obviously talk gambling as well. Indiana is going to lose tonight, but they'll cover the 7 points. I'll be honest, I don't really know who to pick in this game. Every expert is taking Indiana, so I'm going to take Notre Dame. I expect for this game to be incredibly close. It is strength on strength. I've talked about this all week. Notre Dame wants to run the football. Indiana excels at stopping the run. Indiana wants to run the football. Notre Dame has out defense, especially that front seven. So we're going to get a lot of strength on strength. And when you have that, I just think it's hard not to take the team that is top to bottom more talented. And that is what Notre Dame is. Notre Dame has more guys that are going to play on Sunday than Indiana does. And when I don't know who to pick, I'm taking the team in college football that is more talented. Now, there is a path for Indiana to win this football game, and obviously it starts with stopping the run, and it ends with Curtis Rourke really uplifting this offense, something we haven't seen him do against good competition this season. Okay, we all remember the second half of that game against Michigan, where Indiana scored a whopping 3 points and won that game 20-15. We all remember that game against Ohio State where they got blown out and Curtis Rourke was 8 of 18 passing for 68 yards. That version of the Indiana offense cannot show up tonight. And I have to be honest, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Because when you go back and you watch that Ohio State and Indiana game and that Michigan-Indiana game, what were the issues? The issues were the offensive line. Up front, I just don't know if Indiana has the talent to block the guys for Notre Dame. If you have lesser players at skill, positions, you can scheme open different things. You can run rub routes. You can set up play action. There are different scheme things that you can do to kind of get guys open or to be able to run the football. When it comes to blocking, though, you just have to have dudes. And I just don't know if Indiana has the dudes to block Notre Dame. Okay, which means that, is Curtis Rourke going to have time? Or the receivers going to have time to get open? Okay, or is Indiana going to be able to generate some success on the ground? I don't know if they are. Once again, my concern is not the Indiana defense, because the Indiana defense has been pretty solid all year. Obviously they gave up 38 to Ohio State, but 7 of those came off of a punt return for a touchdown. Another, touchdown was set up at, multiple touchdowns were set up off of short fields. So the Indiana defense, I think, is going to be fine against what can be a lackluster Notre Dame offense from time to time. The issue is I just don't know if Indiana is going to be able to move the football against this stout Notre Dame defense. Okay, now if they can do that, then they're going to have a great chance to win. The weather shouldn't be a factor. It's just going to be cold. It's not supposed to snow. So that is a good thing. Should be a relatively clean game, even though I do think it would help Indiana if it snowed. Curtis Rourke being from Canada and, having saw him throw for, 360 yards against Purdue in the snow. So give me the Hoosiers to cover, but Notre Dame wins that game. Let's go 21-17, 24-21, kind of something like that. Moving on, Colts Titans. Give me the Colts in a really ugly game. I don't know. I really don't when it comes to this game. I'm going to take the Colts just because I think they're playing for a little bit more than what the Titans are. They've got really, really slim chances of making the playoffs. They need a lot of help. They need either the Chargers, Ravens, or there's another team who has to lose out for them to have a chance. But one of 3 teams need to lose out, and it doesn't. Denver has to go 0-2, and then the Bengals or the Dolphins have to win out. Those are the 3 scenarios. They probably aren't going to happen. But so the Colts playing for a little bit more. guys, multiple guys playing for contracts next season. The Colts, like, they've got a little extra something to play for. They're back at home. So give me the Colts to win that game as well. And give me the Pacers, who are in the middle of a surge right now. Won 4 of their last 5, went on the road to Phoenix last night and beat the Suns. They looked awesome. And, I didn't think that they played their best because in my notes, I felt like after every quarter, I was just writing down something along the lines of, when will Tyrese Halliburton show up? Even though the Pacers, had the lead, I believe, at the end of every quarter. And, the defensive effort from the Pacers was there. Halliburton, really kind of led that charge. He picked up full court, which whenever the Pacers do that, they just tend to defend way better. Okay, when they pick up full court and that energy and effort is there from the start of the possession on defense, that usually translates to them having just really good effort top to bottom. So I love it when they do that. And like, watching the game last night was the first time in a while that the Pacers have had both Ben Shepherd and Ryan Nembhard available to play the game. And I just forget how much I love the effort from those two guys. Like, they just both play so incredibly hard on defense. They really elevate this team on both ends. These are two guys who can really shoot the ball. It was really funny. Whenever I watched the Pacers play, I listened to the Sun or the opposing team's broadcast because Quinn Buckner just isn't really my preferred style of commentator. So I was listening to the Suns, and they were complaining about Nembhard. They're like, it's just their night because Andrew Nembhard's a 25% three-point shooter, and he's shooting, whatever percent he was shooting whenever they made the comment. I was like, oh, so absolutely nothing about the Pacers, which was kind of funny. But my biggest takeaway from that game last night for the Pacers and why they're playing so much better is Andrew Nembhard just takes so much pressure off of Tyrese Halliburton. Just having another guy who can handle the basketball, shoot, and create for other guys, it is just so much easier on Halliburton. And he can have nights last night where he only scored 13 points, and he can kind of be a little bit more passive because they have another guy in Nembhard who is capable of getting other guys going in the fourth quarter. Like, I think the Pacers were up by like 6, and they went to their bread and butter. It was really impressive. It was Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, high ball screen. Let's get Halliburton downhill. And they got like 2 layups and a wide open 3. And then that was kind of it. And so, really impressive. Forgot how much I love watching Ben Shepherd and Andrew Nembhard play ball because they just make the defense so much better. They provide so much more spacing on offense, and it has just been a real blast to watch them play. Zack Gray, he's set to join the show coming up here in about 4 minutes or so. He's going to give out some bets. We're going to talk the college football playoff. I just realized I have not given out the Kirk Cousins bet of the week, so I'm going to do that with Zack Gray when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Thanks to Total Wine, you saved more on all the gifts for the ones you adore. Wine, spirits, beers, all nestled on shelves.
Curbside pickup and delivery.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. It is Friday. We are closing out the week, which means it's time for Zack Gray to make his weekly appearance here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Zach, what is going on, my man?
Jay Smith, the good weather's done, man. It's snowing right in front of my face.
Yeah, same.
I don't. I love it, but I hate it.
I hate it. There is no love. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I can't stand that is all that people have talked about this week in terms of these matchups for college football. I think it's the most overblown storyline I've heard in quite some time.
So you don't think the weather will have an impact?
I think it will. I just don't think it's going to have as big of an impact as everyone is like making it out to be. Like, believe it or not, half of Ohio State's roster is from Florida. Like, let's not act like people from the South can't play in cold weather.
And also, like, I feel like unless it's like that one bowl game, I think it was App State in Coastal Carolina where the field was actually flooded. I don't think precipitation really affects it. I think if we're talking like super windy, I think that's when you have like a basis for your claim. But like normal snow or rain should not be an excuse.
I agree. I think that we've reached a point where it's been like some of these teams haven't played in 3 weeks. We've had 2 weeks since conference title games. I think people have just run out of things to discuss about these games. And so they're like, oh, let's talk about the weather. Like we're 70-year-old men who have nothing else to really talk about, you know?
Now, to be fair, Jay Smith, I am very concerned with the weather because I don't know if you know this or not, but I will be in the shoe tomorrow.
Neyland North, yeah.
Here we go. Here we go.
No, dude, I'm pumped for you. Like, I don't think I'm doing a show next Friday. I think I'm out a week next week. But whenever I come back, like, I'm gonna have to have you on just so we can talk about that, because that is gonna be just an awesome experience. It should be, at least.
So I've been to 2 other Ohio State games just on the road. I went to one game at Illinois and one game at the Big House against the team up north. I've never actually watched an Ohio State game at the Shoe, and like, for this to be the first one with this environment, with the stakes, like, it's going to be really cool. And I told Morgan yesterday, my fiance, I said, look, I don't think you understand what you're about to walk into, because she's been to Bengals games and she's been to home Illinois games and things like that. But I was like, you're about to walk into a whole new beast. Like, you have no idea. Like, you think Paul Brown Stadium with their 60-something thousand fans is big. Like, wait till you walk in and there's 115,000 people.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick. I'm really jealous. I am. Like, I wish I could go, but sadly I cannot. But what I can do is I can sit underneath a warm blanket and bet a whole bunch, which is what I'm gonna do. Do you have any bets for us this week?
Yeah, so we'll start in college basketball. I don't know if you saw, Jonathan, but I had the worst day of my entire career on Thursday.
It happens. That's part of it.
But we bounced back yesterday with a 2-0.
Nice.
Still up 20, I think 25 units for the season. But tonight we're going to Ohio again. We're going Dayton plus 3.5 versus UC. I got burned on Dayton last game against UNLV. I thought long road trip. UNLV's kind of been underwhelming. You know, Dayton would cover. Ended up being a 1-point game. I think Cincinnati has a lot of holes, a lot of deficiencies that you saw during the crosstown shootout. And I think Dayton's just more well prepared for these types of games, having already played and won at home against Marquette. A better team than Xavier, obviously. And I think they just are more complete at the guard position. I just think they're the better team is what I'm getting at. So give me Dayton plus 3.5. And I still think UC is good, but I think Dayton's better. I think Dayton runs Ohio right now.
Okay, nice. I like it. I'm going to go ahead and bet that one. And then do you have a bet for the college football playoff or no?
Yeah, I don't know who I'm gonna upset here, because I'm going to South Bend tonight.
Nice.
And I think, well, I know who I'm gonna upset. There has not been an easier bet for me to make this entire college football season. And I mean, it's so obvious that Notre Dame covers that 7.
Really?
They are going to. I mean, if you just wanted to play the tape of our Ohio State Indiana preview, and then I can just dub over Notre Dame every time I say Ohio State, like that that would be my reasoning. So yeah, give me Notre Dame -7. Indiana's cute and fun, and you know, they kind of irked me a little bit that week, so I'm a little harsh on them, but I just don't see a way that they can I don't see a way that they can constantly compete. I don't think this is going to be a rock fight like some people are saying. There's no chance Indiana blows them out. So, you know, and my model says like two plus touchdowns. So it's a huge edge.
Okay. All right. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. You can follow him on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine. If you check out the link in his bio, it'll take you to his Patreon, where he basically sells tools to help you make better bets. So, okay, we have to talk about that, because I like Notre Dame to win, but I think Indiana covers. But before we do that, I have not given out the Kirk Cousins bet of the week, where we take a road underdog in the NFL on the money line. I've narrowed it down to 3, and I'm cool with all 3 of them. 49ers plus 1.5 on the road against the Dolphins. The Steelers plus 6.5 on the road against the Ravens. And then the Texans plus 3.5 on the road against a hobbled Mahomes and the Chiefs. Do you have a preference on any one of these 3?
So I think the obvious one to probably take is the Niners, right?
That's how I feel.
You would think that would be like your first glance would be Niners, because the Ravens can't seem to beat the Steelers.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the Chiefs are just kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
But they aren't very good at covering the spread. this year. I think they've only have they covered this year? I think there was a stat out where they either covered 0 times or once this season. So, man, I think it would either be the Chiefs Texans or the Niners Dolphins. I will say that my model does like the Chiefs to cover that 3.5, but they don't like the Niners to cover that 1. I actually have the Dolphins winning outright in that, so that would probably be my choice.
All right, let's take the Niners then. Plus 1.5. That is your Kirk Cousins bet of the week. Now let's move to Indiana.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick. Tough year for your Dolphins.
Yeah. Just, look, man, this is the life of Jonathan Smith. I wake up on Saturdays full of hope, and I watch my Arkansas Razorbacks disappoint me. And then I wake up on Sunday mornings filled with hope, and then the Dolphins do the exact same thing. And so, this is just my life. You as a Bengals fan, though, I mean, you're going through it right now as well.
I was just about to say we're in the same spot. Disgruntled receiver, 6-8. Coach. People are calling for the coach to be fired. We're in a similar spot. It's just tough to be us. You know what I mean? Like everything's against us. It's all everyone else's fault. All that.
That's exactly right. We take no accountability upon ourselves, even though, to be fair, like you're going to Ohio State and Tennessee tomorrow night. I feel like it's pretty great to be you. Meanwhile,
boy,
my Arkansas team, we've lost like our entire roster to the portal.
Ole Miss.
We're gonna play Texas Tech here in a week and probably lose. Like I don't want to talk about it.
I'm gonna say this: Ohio State losing while I'm there hasn't even entered my inner matrix. I am not allowing myself to think about that or feel that until it happens, because I don't think I could take the nervousness and anxiousness of actually thinking they were going to lose. So I'm irrationally confident.
Good. That's where you want to be if you're going to a game. Because it's just no fun if you show up at the game and you're like, yeah, we're probably going to lose. Like, you have to go in just like expecting to win.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about IU, because I do think that there's a difference between Notre Dame and Ohio State. You said that you really like for Notre Dame to cover, which makes me feel really bad about my bet of Indiana to cover the 7. I think that like the reason why Ohio State beat Indiana the way that they did was mainly like the athletes on the outside, right? Like Indiana had no answer for Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith and all the other fantastic NFL level wide receivers that Ohio State has. I thought Indiana was fine against the run game. They gave it the one big one late to Travion Henderson, who I'm sure is like, I really wish I'd just run into the end zone, because Ohio State scored, 2 plays later. And whereas like when I look at Notre Dame, like they've barely thrown the ball for 2,000 yards this year. They're all about running the football. And when you look at Indiana's defense, like they stop the run as well as anyone in the country. I mean, even looking at that game against Ohio State, like Ohio State didn't run wild. So that's why I think this game's a little bit different than what we saw against Ohio State.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different from play style. But again, that inflection point of that Michigan game really opened my eyes to the ceiling for Indiana. Like this, and like I've kind of been like secretly like giving this take out to you like every week. I think Notre Dame could be the best team in the country. I keep that on the down low, except on your radio show and to you, so no one hears it, I'm sure. I don't tell all of my friends that I think Notre Dame's really good. I'm acting like I keep it a secret. I definitely don't. I tell everyone. But I really think like Michigan is the prototype of what Notre Dame is doing this year. They're just doing it obviously way better with better players and better quarterback play and more mobility out of the quarterback position with a similar defense. And like, I'm not saying it's going to be Notre Dame's going to win 45-10, but like to me 21-7, 28-10, like It's not going to look as pretty as maybe Ohio State did it sometimes on, they're not going to get probably the special teams mistakes and things like that. It's not going to look as flashy, but like 28-10, I just don't see Indiana being able to hold up on offense and to really score more than a touchdown and a field goal. Like I really don't see Indiana's offense doing anything. We have 2 data points now of high quality defenses, top end defenses playing them, and they've looked horrible. They haven't been able to do anything at all. Whatever Ohio State wanted them to do, they fell right into that. Whatever Michigan straight up said, we're going to bully you in the second half of that game. And like, this is the same type of team. So I don't understand, how as an Indiana fan or as someone that's picking Indiana, how you look at that and compare the two and think it's magically going to get better. They're magically going to get bigger and stronger and faster and be able to score when they haven't in the last 2 times they've had this type of matchup.
Does the first half against Michigan give you any sort of confidence in Indiana to find a way to generate some points? Because they did score 17 points in that first half.
Well, we both know, like, I'm an Ohio State fan, but I think we can all agree Michigan's not very good.
Yes.
They have a good defense, but they're not very good. So, like, that's like the easiest test that they've had from a game perspective when it comes to a full team. Like 17-15, and then you go and get beat 38-15, and now you're playing a similar opponent to the team that just beat you 38-15 in terms of athleticism, size. Like, I don't think I can weigh that first half against Michigan more than the other 2 games or a game and a half that we've seen where it's been the opposite of that.
It's fair, and that's why I have Notre Dame winning. I just don't think that – I think this game is going to be really low scoring. Like, I think the final is going to be like 20-17 or something more similar to that, because I just don't think that Notre Dame is explosive enough on offense like Ohio State was to put up a whole bunch of points against the defense of Indiana. And I don't know. I don't think that Notre Dame is as good or as talented as Ohio State. Because like I've compared these 2 games a lot, and like Ohio State's the most talented team in the country, I would say. And like as good as Notre Dame is, I don't think that they're on that level.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you actually believe this. I want to make sure you actually believe this.
I do. I mean, Notre Dame has the 51st ranked run defense in all of college football. I don't think that they trust Riley Leonard to throw it. And so I really think that there's a scenario where, like, if Indiana can slow down the run game of Notre Dame, which I think is possible because we saw them do that against a really good, backfield in Ohio State. Like, I think that if you put the game in Riley Leonard's hands, Indiana has a really good chance to win. Because I haven't been that impressed by him this year. And when you look at, like, the way that Notre Dame runs their offense, I feel like they don't want him to throw it. I mean, in 7 of their 12 games this year, he's thrown the ball less than 25 times, which, like, throwing the football 25 times in college football is not a lot. And he's fallen under that more times this year than he hasn't. He hasn't thrown for 250 yards in a game all year. I think Indiana is going to make them throw it, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to.
Yeah, and I think regardless, as the snow is just barreling down out here, I think I'm just like picturing this game tonight and like how massive it's going to feel. It's going to be so awesome to see a playoff game on a home site in college football. Like, this is a huge moment tonight.
It is. Who would have thought that Indiana would be playing in the first 12-team college football playoff game? It's absurd. You there, Zach? Zach, you there? Oh, no. We may have lost him, which is honestly perfect timing, Zach. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'm supposed to be out here in like 30 seconds. That's my guy, Zack Gray, at ZG, the Grapevine on Twitter. You can follow him there. He's got a Patreon in his bio where he sells tools to help you make better bets. He does a fantastic job betting college football and college basketball. That's kind of his bread and butter. So you're definitely going to want to follow him through the college football playoff and through the college basketball season as well. That's going to do it here at The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back again on Monday from 10 to noon to talk about whatever happens tonight in Indiana and Notre Dame.